Welcome to another episode of the Straight Up Chicago Investor Podcast. I'm Tom Shawcross, licensed agent with Second City Real Estate. With me, as always, is Mark Ainley, founder and owner of 𝗣𝗲𝗃 Realty. Mark, you almost had me on that one. Almost tripped up.
Oh, man, it's Friday. We got our first French-Canadian guest coming on here today. It's just happening, man. You and me are both trying to get the podcast in before our kids come home screaming. Like, yeah, it's all on today, man.
Let's have it, man. This is there's some sort of hockey joke in here. We're recording this right after the Hawks got the overall first-round pick, so we can kind of tie this together.
Oh, yeah, for sure, man. And then you tie that together with refinancing, cashing out, man, and those rates going higher.
That doesn't tie it at all.
That does not exciting at all, but
yeah, so I guess I had this conversation has come up a few times, and I guess this is always, like, I don't say a flaw, but something to account for in the BRRRR process, but it's even more dramatic now. A cash out refi is always going to be at a higher rate than what a purchase is, or even a rate term refi. And just to define those, a rate term refi is when you take the existing balance and you just refi to a lower rate. You don't take any money out. Obviously, when you're doing a BRRRR, you're going to be pulling cash out, right? You either bought the thing in cash or you're pulling that original equity you put in the project. You want to get it back. So you're going to be doing a cash out refi. Those always carried a premium, and I'm not a lender, but so it's always a little bit higher. If rates are at 4.5, that cash out refi would be 4.875 or something. It used to be not a huge deal. Now I feel like there's a huge premium on those cash out refis. So So if you're sitting there and, let's say rates today are at 6.5, you're like, oh, I'm going to refi out at 6.5. That's not going to be the case. So just one of those things when you're putting the spreadsheet together, or you're thinking about doing a BRRRR or any sort of, equity play like that, you need to account for that higher stabilized rate in your pro forma.
yeah, and especially if this is like a exit strategy, right? Worst case scenario, I'll cash out and I'll hold it. Make sure your worst case scenario, you might be getting charged another % on interest. So make sure that you're accounting for that in your strategy for the people. This might only be the second or third option you have.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It seems obvious, right? As a lender, I understand why they put the premium, but you as the investor, then need to account for it.
Nice. All right.
So what do we got for the housing provider tip?
All right, man. So this is one that we've been doing for a really long time. A lot of people use padlocks for maybe getting into basements or doors that don't have, in these 100-year-old buildings, they have these really old locks, so it's hard to change the locks. So you slap one of those sliders on there and put a padlock on there, or sheds or whatnot. But those little keys always get lost and never labeled correctly or whatnot. And what I've always done is you take the padlock, cut it off, and then you use a lockbox, just your $10 or $15 lockbox. And your access then is the combo then. Now I've had, so think about this, you slide it in there and then you hook it. And then in order to unhook it, you use the combo for the lockbox. So it's something that you don't have to worry about losing the key. It's something that, maybe you have it on a back of a basement access where you could send a boiler guy there and you just got to give him the combo. And it's just something that for us has been a way to scale. If you only got one building, one key, and you're the guy that does the boiler work, not a big deal. But as you grow, you'll run into access and key issues.
I like it.
Yeah.
All right. We got a lot to talk about. Let's go ahead and just jump in here.
All right. Cool, man. Well, today, our French-Canadian guest, a younger guy out of New York, came here to Chicago, working professional, but he's buying a property a year. It's pretty exciting. We have, it's going to be a house hacking conversation today. And it's going to be a Garfield Park conversation. So I'm pretty excited because I get, there's not a week that doesn't go by and people ask me, hey, what's your opinion of Garfield Park? So excited to introduce Curtis Lefebvre. Curtis, before we get going here, you're from New York. You're here in Chicago now. New York style or Chicago style pizza?
Hi, Mark and Tom. Yeah, I'm super excited to be on the podcast. I listen to you guys all the time. New York or Chicago style pizza? I'm gonna have to go New York if it's in between those two, but Detroit style pizza has come onto my radar, and I really like that.
Oh, because Pizza Hut? That's all I know.
Yeah, back in the 90s, this was called Pizza Hut. You get it with your book it receipt.
Oh, man, yeah, the little personal pan things. Oh, man, you brought me back there for a second. A lot of people are like, what the hell is book it? Our young audience. Curtis is like that probably right now.
Yeah, actually, I haven't heard of that, but yeah, every time people come to visit me in Chicago, I bring them to Illuminati's, so don't mean to put one Chicago pizza in front of the other.
All right. Well, Curtis, give us kind of an idea. You moved here from New York? Kind of give us your mindset, why you're doing that, why you bought a house hack here. Just kind of give us a 1 minute kind of rundown of how we ended up here.
Yeah, so I moved from the Bronx to New York to Chicago about 3 years ago. It was 2 weeks before the pandemic, so what a time to be alive and move to a new city. I moved here for a couple of reasons. One of them was to get away from New York City taxes, which is, 15% higher. I also had been doing some real estate investing before with student rentals and Section 8, but I wanted to house hack and invest in my own backyard. And, Chicago has a lot of great features to it. One of them is that it's really prepped for density, and also it has really great public transportation. So I just see the future of Chicago as having a lot of growth.
So real quick, did you have ties here, right? Did you go, like, you're in New York, you wanted to say, hey, I'm looking for somewhere. Was this a search through 5 or 6 different cities, or it was just, hey, Chicago's kind of big, I'm going to go there?
Well, I didn't know anybody. And so that hasn't been something that's held me back before. I've gone to other places on my own and figured it out. But the main reason is that the corporate job that I was working at, the other options were LA or Chicago. Chicago was more my vibe.
Got it. Cool. So you're looking to house hack here. First impression, right? I'm moving to Chicago. We have, what seems like can be a billion different sub neighborhoods in all our different communities. How did you start to grasp that? Like, what was the process going through, hey, north side, south side, west side, etc.? Like, how did you start breaking down? And we'll get to the actual investments, but I could feel it's overwhelming to someone coming from out of state.
Hold on, before you go on that answer though, like, he left New York to find lower taxes and came to Illinois. Like, that's just like a breath of right there. Like, if we can only draw more people from New York, we could definitely stabilize population issues.
His mind when I mentioned that I moved.
That's hilarious.
But I mean, it's true, and also properties a lot less expensive over here too. So everything's relative, but to your point, Tom, coming to Chicago and just like looking at maps and looking at the real estate play here, I actually think it's a lot easier to see the path of progress here in Chicago versus, like a New York City, for example. And when I first moved, I didn't really do any sort of investing for the first year and a half. I was living downtown, really enjoying, Chicago, this city. And then I was lucky enough to meet a roommate on Facebook. He's from Chicago. He actually grew up in North Lawndale, very familiar with the neighborhoods. And we bought this triplex together to house hack together. And so I had a lot of his local knowledge when looking at neighborhoods. And, we looked at several different neighborhoods, Tri-Taylor being one of them, but it was too expensive. Bucktown, Wicker Park, Edgewater, Evanston. Really what I was seeing in all of them was that they had already appreciated in value. And, I would have to do a harder financial play, so I was willing to sacrifice in other ways versus financial.
So you came to a new city, you found a roommate online. Sometimes it sounds creepy. And he actually became a real estate partner with you, and you guys had you get all this stuff in common. Like that's such a win in itself right there. Is that something you expected to happen, or is that just kind of luck of the draw?
I think it's luck of the draw. I mean, to be honest with you, it's probably the best roommate story that I've heard amongst people. You also have to put it into context too, where we were locked down for months. I just moved to Chicago. 2 weeks later, lockdown happens. And so we're just, just sharing knowledge and stories and whatnot. And so it just really worked out.
Path of progress, like you described how you weren't able to recognize that in New York, and you could see that clearer in Chicago. Like, what does that mean? Go a little deeper for people that are always trying to understand what's next, or where should I go, or why should I go somewhere?
Well, I like to drive around and just see what's going on in different neighborhoods. I was astounded by how many vacant lots there were in Chicago, and then also new developments and whatnot. And when you lay down different transportation lines like the bus or the train, and then you also look at different construction permits and general developments going up, it's obvious that developments moving out westward, so that was something that I saw, and especially along the main boulevards, that there's a lot of progress being done there.
So talk to us a little about just the housing inventory. Someone from coming out of state, this was something that stuck with me. We interviewed Victoria back on, Mark, we can look up the episode number. But, she specifically moved to Chicago because of the 2 to 4 units we have. And I think it's something most of our listeners take for granted. It's house hacking city over here, man. Like, we have such a large portion of our inventory, like a quarter of it, are these 2 to 4 units that in other areas that doesn't exist. So, Curtis, I guess talk to us a little about just, okay, the amount of at-bats that you saw, just seeing that inventory. I'd like to get your perspective from someone who wasn't born and raised here.
Episode 195. It was an awesome episode. Check it out, Victoria.
Yeah, well, in New York, there's also a lot of multifamily too, but it's not small multifamily, 2 to 4 units, and that's perfect for house hacking. And Chicago is one of the cities that has the most amount of small multifamily, and which is another reason why I was attracted here. But you can find nice buildings to house hack, especially when you're younger and you can make a little bit more of a sacrifice. It's not your forever home; it's your first investment. Yeah, Chicago's a great city to do it.
All right, so let's talk about this process. You guys looked at a few different areas. You're getting outbid on a few things. Just talk us through, like, how many months did that take? What was going on? Give us the story.
Yeah, so when you're in it, it feels like it takes forever, but looking back, it's actually a lot quicker than you think. We were certainly getting outbid from different properties. There's this one property in particular that stands out. It was in Tri-Taylor. It was a 3-flat, recently renovated, going for $750. It didn't have nearly as much access to transportation as the property that we ended up buying, but we got outbid from that. And so, other properties weren't working out either, but honestly, every time I walked through a building, I was able to pick out what I liked, what I didn't like. And so when I finally got to this one building that is a 3-flat, as a finished basement, I was able to offer right away, asking price, what this guy wanted, and it turned out to be a really great investment.
So just so I could sum up what you said, is you went and looked at a whole bunch of properties, and through that process, you're able to get a better feeling of what you liked, what you didn't like, what was out there. So it gave you really good kind of context to help you find, when you saw that property you did buy, you knew it was the one.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, every time you walk a property, it's just adding to your experience, and just so you can pick out what works for you.
I love it. I use the term all the time, establishing your baseline, right?
Yeah.
Like, you need to get that so you can understand, you can make those no-go decisions, without having to go back to the spreadsheet.
Yeah, exactly. And actually the one in Tri-Taylor that, in my mind, I thought I really wanted, I'm so happy that I didn't end up with that one. It was $750, where the one, the triplex we bought in East Garfield is $500,000, which, some of the numbers make a lot of sense here in East Garfield. You can find finished buildings, multifamily buildings for $525 to $750, but then the ones that need help, they're at $250, $350. So there's a lot of, value add that you can add there. Some of the condos are going for $180, and the lots are going for $60. So it's on a good upward trajectory. It's definitely a neighborhood where you can get that appreciation, but you can also get that cash flow.
Yep. All right, so let's talk about this, because I know when anyone makes an offer on a property, there's that, like, oh man, and when it gets accepted, it's always, oh, did I miss something? Did I overpay? Like, just walk us through what's going on through your head here, you and your buddy.
It becomes real.
Yeah, I mean, we were excited that it was happening. I was kind of away on vacation, but I was able to do a lot over Zoom, and I had a really great lender. I'm gonna give him a shout out. His name is Brian Lindstrom from Guaranteed Rate. He's worked with a lot of house hackers in the past, and very great with creative financing, and he's a real estate investor himself. So there's a lot of help there. A big reason why the person wanted to sell the property was because there was a problem tenant. And, so we're excited that we have locked down the property, but now we have to figure out, all right, how are we going to navigate this problem tenant? Because the problem tenant had a reputation on the block for running other tenants out of the building. So we weren't too afraid of that, just because we were going to be on site. We could kind of manage the situation a little bit better. And what ended up happening, and by the way, both the tenants that we inherited were on Section 8. When we moved in,
is this a 2 or 3 unit? What are we talking here?
3 unit. I'm living in the top unit, and then the tenant in the bottom 2. And the one in the middle unit actually ran out the one in the basement unit, true to everybody's story. So that was interesting. We were able to get somebody else to move in, which has been great. We're actually able to raise rents because the lady that was living here before was way below market rate rent. But then just being very transparent and communicating with the problem tenant, we told her that we weren't going to renew her lease, and we were flexible about the move out date and whatnot. But she moved out, which was great for us, and because she was on Section 8, we never lost out on that rent, which is why I'm a huge advocate for rental assistance programs.
For being the problem tenant, you knew that right away. Did you know that because the seller disclosed it, or did you know that from your visits to the property? Tell us kind of how you knew that up front.
Yeah, well, the seller disclosed it, and the seller disclosed it because she had other offers from other buyers, and she kind of ran them away before. And then when we moved in, we were talking with the neighbors, very friendly with the neighbors and whatnot. They were kind of giving us the inside scoop.
Talk to us about the negotiations here, right? So you go under contract, you have a problem tenant. What else, right? Like, I'm sure there's attorney review. I'm sure there's an inspection. Just walk us through the history here.
Yeah. So when we walked in, it was actually a really funny experience because we walk into the building and the middle unit is vacant at this point, and the seller is there, which is like, he has long hair and his legs are crossed. He looked like he was meditating or something. Very funny. And we walked through and we like it. And it just so happened that the property was listed on the market, but then had gotten taken off the market. So it really wasn't on the market when we were walking it. He was asking for $480, and we had lost out on a couple bids. We saw the rental income, and we had done a bunch of different calculators and whatnot. And so we decided to give him what asking price, especially because we're using an FHA loan. It's 3.5% down. The interest rates were super low at the time. We were able to lock in a 2.8% interest rate with 1% mortgage protection. So 3.8%, but really low monthly payment. All things considered, especially because in East Garfield, you have really low real estate taxes as compared to other neighborhoods. I think for our neighborhood, it's about $4,000, $5,000, which is nuts. And as part of the negotiation, the top unit needed some help, which has scared other buyers away. And so part of the deal was that we would get the top unit renovated. We'd increase the purchase price to $500,000. But that $20,000 was now rolled into a mortgage, a 30-year mortgage, instead of coming out of pocket for the rehab. So there was different.
So just to be clear, you did this this wasn't 203K, right? You're doing this with the seller. He's renovating it. You're up in the purchase price, contingent on that renovation being done.
Yep, exactly. He is also a flipper. He had a couple of other properties.
I was gonna say, you need the right seller to make this thing happen.
Yeah, actually though. Mm-hmm.
All right, so
how did that did that just get all put into the attorney review? How was that hammered out and kind of detailed? Because you probably had to have an expectation there of this is what you're going to do and this is what I'm going to give you $20,000 for. How was all that paperwork?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, so we spoke about it with our lawyer, and we just had it written out in a document what they would do. And the finishes that would be included and whatnot, the time frame that it would be completed in, and luckily, and it all worked out.
How extensive was it? New kitchen, new bathroom? Like what type of scope?
It really was, you know, looking back at it, pretty cosmetic. New floors, renovated kitchen, renovated bathroom, paint, carpet, which is exactly what I had to do in the middle unit after that problem tenant left, which is, you know, another topic of conversation. But yeah, you know what? Now, having had the experience of doing a little bit of a light rehab myself, instead of paying the 20 grand, I think I could have done it for cheaper with better materials.
What so based on this is a unique situation, right? How did you still get a home inspection? Did you still go through some of those traditional things?
Yeah.
Well, one follow-up to that too. Did he make you put any additional earnest money down hard? That's something we get on the sell side where if we're gonna do customization and you back out, like we don't, you know, we're left holding the bag. So we're always asking for money down hard at that point.
Mm-hmm. I think the earnest money was pretty light. I believe it was only $3,000. You know, he had other buyers that had dropped out and whatnot. So I think in a way he also kind of wanted to do what he had to do to accommodate our needs and whatnot. And
you want to get rid of that tenant.
Oh yeah, exactly. It's somebody else's problem is your own gold mine, you know. But he, so when we were going through the appraisal process, we waited until the rehab was finished for it to get appraised by the lender, and then it actually came out to about 510, so 10 over, you know, what we paid.
Yeah, well, no, you're also just more liquid at this point, right? Especially at a time when rates are 2 point whatever. Like that's like that's the play.
Oh,
I mean, every dollar, keep every dollar of ammunition for the next one.
Exactly. I was telling my business partner and buddy how we needed to jump in quickly because at that time, this was purchased maybe a year and a half ago. I started seeing interest rates starting to climb up. So we, you know, that was not that we had pressure, but we wanted to make a move, you know.
So your roommate that you met on Facebook, he ultimately became your business partner, and you guys moved into this house hack together, right?
Yes.
Following right? Talk to us about the tenant, because you guys had an advantage. Most people in your situation do not know that tenant is a problem. We had a client this week bought a property, and he kind of came in at the last minute. He's like, oh, yeah, they're paying this super good amount. I'm like, yeah, my guess is they're not. There's a lot of damage to the house. I'm like, my guess is they're not paying. And ultimately, these people came back and they didn't pay the first month's rent, and we're going to get rid of them. And a lot of times, that's what it takes is a whole bunch of steps or weeks or months to realize, oh crap, I got handed like. So you're very lucky in that sense. But how'd you handle this going into it? Did you just go in right away, give the notice? Was she within a lease? Like, talk to us about kind of that, because there's some tactical things there that you want to do sooner than later.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, so we didn't make moves too quickly. You know, we tried to keep it super amicable. Something that was to our benefit was that we were living on premise. So I think because of that, you know, things were a little bit more orderly and whatnot.
Or awkward.
I mean, it's as awkward as you want to make it, right? If you like smiling and trying to be kind, you're just like, this is, you know, how it is. It's all good. People, you know, can't fight back against kindness in a way, you know. So she was understanding. The unit was in pretty bad condition after she left, but I go back to this. Because of CHA, you're still getting paid, you know, and so that made everything a lot better.
How long was she living there before you bought the building?
Probably 7 years. She had been living there for a while. Had run out a couple of tenants before.
What was she doing?
The issue? Running out?
Yeah. What is that?
Going on?
Go to
Okay,
so the rumors.
An example would be creating a lot of noise. There was a couple of times where this was before I had moved in. She had run the water too much, and the ceiling came down in an area in the unit below. So and then she was just like very rude. So little things like that you know, people are just saying, oh, you know, I don't have to live in this environment, so I'll move, you know.
So you came in and just killed her with absolute kindness and like were right above her and like say good morning, like that's awesome.
Ironically, from a New Yorker.
Yeah.
Well, the good thing is there was a little bit of good cop, bad cop. You know, my friend is a little bit more of like an enforcer. He doesn't say too much, but like he's definitely a presence. And it's funny because after she left, we renovated the place on our own. But then it was November at that time. We're kind of fearful that winter is coming. Yeah, not too many people are going to move in. And then we decided to go with somebody that's not on Section 8, a long-term tenant. But we gave him a 6-month lease, and that was actually more challenging than this first problem tenant. And the challenging part here really was because he wasn't paying his rent on time, number one, and then number two, he'd let a couple months go by. And you know, I'd much rather deal with personalities than with not getting paid rent every month, you know?
Yep. So back up a little bit. You guys decide to take on this rehab yourself.
Yeah.
All right. So walk us through that process. 'Cause that's, you know, for someone new, that's you're working your W-2 job. Like I'm sure you guys got a ton of things going on. Walk us through this, right?
Mm-hmm. So I do work a W-2 job. My buddy also works his own W-2 job. And I don't have a lot of experience being a handyman, but I'm definitely somebody who just takes action. And we don't have like a bunch of cash either, right? So we were getting some different quotes. It's been a habit to get at least 3 or 4 quotes from contractors, and a lot of the estimates were coming out to $30,000. This covered all new floor for a 1,200 square foot place, carpeting 4 different bedrooms, paint, whole new bathroom, whole new kitchen. And we started really breaking it down. Okay, this is what materials are going to cost. This is what labor is going to cost. All right, what just takes a lot of elbow grease versus what takes a lot of talent. And so we ended up just knocking out the floor, which we got some really great quality vinyl planking, and it's because we were able to invest a little bit more in the materials because we weren't paying for the labor. That's like, so if you want to knock down rehab expenses and you're able to do some work yourself, knock out the floor. And then the carpeting is not too bad either. Painting is not too bad. The kitchen, a lot of it is just installing cabinets, which isn't that difficult either. The difficult part and what we did hire out was the bathroom. And so you definitely should always get a plumber. You need to get a plumber.
Yeah.
Did you do that from the get-go?
Just what went wrong? It couldn't have all gone smooth, right?
Yeah. Did you hire out the bathroom to start, or did you do something and then realize maybe I had it up?
We did hire out the bathroom to start. We did get a bad plumber to start, and we were able to fix where you messed up. They put these PVC pipes together without securing them with glue and whatnot. So we were able to address that quickly before putting the floor down. Fired him, got a new guy, and it ended up being a lot better. And luckily, I had another buddy from New York move to Chicago, and he's really into real estate development. But commercial real estate development, very handy. And he would come in, drop some knowledge really quick, and help us out.
Do you have galvanized or lead pipes in there? Is the plumbing updated?
Mm-hmm. I don't have the perfect answer for you. I believe it's galvanized, but there is a new section of it that's PVC.
So the drainage, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so instead of $30,000, we were able to do the whole rehab for $12,000. So I'll save an extra $18,000 by an extra 6 weeks of work after your W-2 and on the weekends.
Yeah,
especially at the beginning.
Well, talk to us too, and as you scale, that becomes, time becomes more important to search for new deals. Like it's dependent on stage here. I agree with you 100%, right? Take the money, roll it into another deal or whatever. But then talk to us about just the tangible benefit of doing it, knowing what it takes, understanding how things go together, right? Like there's that education you get that's probably worth more than some of these, classes of real estate people are teaching.
100%. And I feel like I kind of did it a little backwards. We didn't talk too much about the investments that I had done prior to this one, but I had bought 2 properties in upstate New York and then 1 property in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And so all of those long distance investments always had to hire out the projects and be more of like a project manager from afar. And so I think this was a perfect opportunity for me to dive into, what it takes to do a rehab. How much does the labor cost, the materials cost, how long does it take? And I just have a better picture overall of, where there's areas to add value.
Yeah. So what did your rents do then? Right. So we get through the rehab. I know you're doing it in winter, so it's a little tough, but talk to us about what were rents before the rehab and what were rents after?
Yeah. So when we moved in, the basement unit was going for, and just to back up a little bit, the previous owner, he had purchased the property from a cousin, and he had inherited the tenants too, and he hadn't done a lot of rehab. A lot of the rent that these tenants had was from years back and hadn't been moved up. And so when we moved in, the basement unit was going for about $1,050. The middle unit was going for $1,480. And after all the rehab work is done, the basement unit is now going for $1,550. That's a 3-bed, 1-bath. The middle unit is going for $2,200. That's a 4-bed, 1-bath. And then in the top unit, my buddy and I live here, so we eliminate our rental expense. But then also we have 2 extra rooms that we rent out to another friend for $650, and he has his 1 room and then his office. So it's
Oh man, so we're house hacking the house hack,
Oh gosh, yeah.
the meta house hack.
My size every square inch of it for sure.
All right, so those are good numbers, right? Like you're into this thing for. I'm just thinking about the cash invested, right? So you're at 3% of 500,000 roughly, right? Like you put 3.5% down on that original purchase price. So you're in this thing for 15, 20 grand off the front. You paid another, would you say 17 on the rehab?
I would say more like, let's say 15,000. Because
So you're all in liquidity wise, you're all into this building for like 30K, right? Somewhere.
So the 3.5% plus the 2% in closing costs came out to about 26,000, plus the 12,000 in rehab. So let's round it out to like $40,000.
All right, so you're into this thing for 40 grand. You're locked in at a mortgage rate sub 3.
Yes.
Right. You have a brick building here that is pumping out. What was it you said? You said 15 and another 22.
Yes.
So 3,700. I'm trying to. Mortgage rates are so low I can't even do that math right now. Like it's unfathomable in my head. But like you're basically covering your expense, living for free. Plus you're getting the 650 from the other guy living with you.
Yep. So I'm covering my mortgage and my utilities and a little extra.
So you're cash flowing while living there.
Yes. And so when I move out, this unit will likely go for 2,200 or more. And the crazy thing is,
yeah, so you'll be gross renting like 6 grand or something, right? Like this is a silly number.
Mm-hmm. Let's
22.15. Like
when you count what this unit would go for that I'm living in. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. But the crazy thing is that this is just the beginning, because there's a lot of great development that's happening in East Garfield. I'm super optimistic about East Garfield. If you just look at it on a map, it's kind of the obvious next place to go, right? Because you have West Loop on one side, then you have Ukrainian Village in the northeast, then you have Humboldt Park northwest, and then the medical district in Tri-Taylor is on like this southern side of I-290. And so the next place is East Garfield. And before, the line that you wouldn't cross in quotations for investment properties and whatnot was Western. But now it's 𝗏𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃. And so
it used to be Damon, right? Like it
keeps moving.
No.
Yeah, but on 𝗏𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃, there's 2 great developments that are approved and about to get going. One of them is called Hub 32, and this is right on the 𝗏𝗃𝗃𝗃 Green Line stop. It's a $47 million development. It's part of an ETOD, which is Equitable Transit Orientated Development, and it's mixed use. So that's there's going to be a lot of kind of appreciation coming from that side. But then farther down 𝗥𝗲𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃, 2 blocks away from me, there's a new development that's just got approved actually on May 9th, and it's called Garfield Green. And this is a $37 million development, mixed use. It's going to bring 82 units to the neighborhood, and it's also carbon neutral. So when I look at it on a map and I see the rents coming from West Loop, coming from Ukrainian Village and whatnot, they're going for, 2,400 up to like 2,800 and higher and whatnot. So a lot of it's just buy and hold tight.
Well, what's next and when is next? And are you staying in the neighborhood? Where are you thinking?
Well, this is certainly an investment property. This is obviously not my forever home, but I really like my neighbors, and I could see myself living here for a little bit. It's obviously a little bit of a sacrifice to not live, in downtown Chicago, where there's a lot of young professionals. Like I'm 28 years old. I would love to live down there, but I'm kind of thinking more into the future. And so what would be next is buy another property in East Garfield. I'm just like super optimistic about this area.
Now, would you house hack another one and go get, would you do that same approach?
Yeah. So I have a deal with my buddy that the first FHA loan was under my name. So the second FHA loan is going to be under his name.
Beautiful.
Yeah. But I'm also open to other deals as well. I'm in a position right now where I'm recapitalizing because I've really only been using, my money or, some family and friends. But I know where the deals are, and I have some really good experience now. So, if there's opportunities out there to partner up with other people, I'm always open to that.
Well, what's your W-2 again? What's your background?
So it's in marketing. I kind of like ended up there totally by accident. But I'm making it work. Specifically, I do business development. I think I'm going to be moving more into like a sales type role, tech sales. If you're good at tech sales, you can make a lot of money doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so real quick, because we've just talked on Garfield Park.
Mm-hmm.
What is the most the most eastern border? Like, when do you start getting into East Garfield Park? Where is the southern border? I thought it was 290. I looked at a map. I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Mm-hmm. And then, Mark, this is probably some of your expertise too. Talk to us about, the park dividing it, going to the west. Like, let's just give that little outline for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's funny because old railroads are the perimeter. Old railroads and the park are the perimeter to East Garfield. So there's in the north, the old railroad is a couple blocks north of the Green Line.
Mm-hmm.
On the east side of it, the old railroad is a couple of blocks west of Western. On the south, it's a couple blocks south of I-290, and on the west, it's Garfield Park, the end of Garfield Park. And we didn't touch on this before, but just in that small square, there's a lot of really great public transportation, right? So you have the Green Line coming up top, then you have bus 20, then bus 126, then the Blue Line, which is also I-290, and then you have bus number 7. So it really just feeds right into downtown Chicago.
Even on the north side too, I think that 𝗥𝗲𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃 got a metro stop.
Yeah, that's a line.
Yeah. So and then just for I know you're in East Garfield Park, Mark. I think you have stuff on both sides of the park. Well, you go into West Garfield Park. What's our difference? What's going on over there?
I've compared it to, and it's almost like East Woodlawn versus West Woodlawn. Like I think you get a lot of speculators in West Garfield, and then similar to my in West Woodlawn. Now both West Woodlawn and West Garfield have changed, but that's been kind of the vibe over the last call it 5-6 years.
Cool.
Well, yeah,
it does looking over there too. Let's get your take.
Sorry, what was that?
Let's get your take. Have you been looking in West Garfield Park as well, or are you staying east of the park?
I haven't, to be honest with you. I'm trying to stay east of 𝗏𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃, and it's actually really fun to look at East Garfield on a satellite map because there's a lot of vacant lots there. And I just see a bunch of new development coming up in this area. And so I wouldn't want to stray too far away. You know, I kind of like put my stake in the ground with this building, and I kind of want to stay around it.
I'll see if I can find it for the show notes, but I saw a map of a satellite over the last 10 years for East Garfield Park, and you can watch all those lots be filled in. Just it was the most recent was summer 2022, and you could see a whole bunch of footings and new construction stuff that went up. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, if I'm going to recommend anything to people, I think Washington Boulevard is a place to look out for. I'm on Jackson Boulevard, but Washington Boulevard is definitely, there's a lot of vacant lots there, and the properties are nice.
I love it. Now, Mark, when you say we're going to add some in the show notes, for listeners, what happens is 30 minutes before we got to get this thing submitted, we're like, hey, where's that? So make a note to yourself and actually get this thing done.
I will. I wrote it down on this imaginary piece of paper.
Well, awesome. Mark, we good to wrap here?
We are, man. We are.
Let's do it.
All right, Curtis.
Guys, thank you.
All right. Well, let's go. You got to go through your questions now. So what has been your competitive advantage? You're a young guy. You're working professional at W-2, and you've actually done what a lot of other people could do. How have you been able to do this?
My friend gave me a very nice compliment the other day, and he said that I'm somebody that pulls the trigger. You know, I just take action. I don't have to know everything, but I just start and I figure it out.
It's the marketing you do, A/B testing. Just figure it out.
Yep.
What is one piece of advice you would tell someone that is yet to buy their first property here in Chicago?
House hack in your 20s. You know, make a little bit of a sacrifice right now, and your future self will be very grateful.
All right. What do you do for fun?
I really love going to concerts. I really love live music. There's this great app. It's called Bands in Town, and it links up to your Spotify, and it lets you know when the artists that you're listening to are in town. And Chicago's great because a lot of major artists just stop here, and the tickets aren't that expensive. So I love going to do that. And I also really enjoy just being outside. You know, you only get that for a couple of months out of the year in Chicago. So whatever I can do outside.
Yeah, yesterday was one of those days.
Absolutely. All right, Curtis, what's a good book, podcast, or self-development activity that you'd recommend to our listeners?
What I have gotten the most benefit from is just going to networking events. It could be real estate, but it doesn't have to be. It could be any type of networking event, and just asking people, you know, what they do, and it kind of just helps you form, you know, future plans and different ideas and whatnot.
All right, awesome. Besides yourself, name one person in your local network you'd highly recommend to other investors. You dropped your mortgage guy before you got anybody else.
Yeah, so I already dropped Brian Lindstrom from Guaranteed Rate, but I would also like to mention Tony Palella, and he runs the Tony P events. He has a mortgage company. It's called Diamond Realty Mortgage, but he also knows everybody in Chicago. So if you ever need a certain connection, you hit up Tony, and he knows a guy. So yeah, those two gentlemen are awesome.
Tony sounds like he should be a guest then. We gotta hunt this guy down.
Yeah, Brian Lindstrom too. Like I've heard good things about him as well.
Yeah, if you guys want a connection over text or email, let me know.
Yeah. Yes, sir. All right, so Curtis, thank you so much. You provide a ton of value to our listeners. How can they learn more about you? Is there any way they can provide value to you?
I don't have a huge social media presence. If they did want to get in contact with me, my email is 𝗏𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃. I don't know how I got that, but I got it. You think somebody else would have picked up that email? You know, not really big on social media either. So my phone number is 646-358-5675. Always down to chat about real estate, about Chicago, about entrepreneurship in general. You know, there's a couple other things that I do. And, you know, what would be of value to me? I really enjoy investing in real estate, but I have a little bit of trouble on the financial side of things in terms of like raising capital and just doing that. And so if there was somebody that I could team up with that could help me do that, that would supercharge things in a really positive way.
Well, good stuff. We'll link to all that in the show notes. Mark,
that email reminded me of my kids always make fun of me because I play Roblox with them, and my name on there is big guy from the Shy.
Yeah, I feel that sometimes people take website domains and they just claim them all. So I would think like Chai would be, everybody would claim Chai. So.
Let's do this. Mark, we got a Chicago fact. You ready? Who are we playing for?
I am ready. Well, today, the Chicago Fact is sponsored by KSN, 𝗵𝗶𝗶𝗵𝗃, and we are playing for Cindy. I'm going to butcher your last name, 𝗥𝗲𝗹𝘁𝗍𝗏. Bought a hoodie here a few months ago. So, Cindy, if myself or Curtis get the Chicago Fact right, 𝗵𝗶𝗶𝗵𝗃 from KSN will send you a $50 gift card. So let's do it.
All right. So there's pure guessing here, Mark. So let's see. You guys have a 50-50 shot, basically, between your two guesses. So we didn't talk about the Garfield Park Conservatory. It is one of the largest greenhouse conservatories in the U.S. So physically, how big is the conservatory? And we're doing this in acres. If you remember from your real estate exam, there's 640 acres in a mile. Okay?
Yeah.
So
4,360 square feet.
Yeah, there you go. So is it half an acre, 4.5 acres, 10.5 acres, or 19.5 acres? How big is the conservatory?
19.5 acres.
Curtis, what do you want to go with?
I'm going to go with the 10 acres.
Oh, guys, 4.5. It's not that big.
Wait, is it the property or the whole conservatory?
The conservatory, not the.
I was thinking the whole
park, man.
Oh man,
I'm not thinking that. The whole.
I thought like the whole the whole plot. We have to remind that. Make sure you answer that question. Ask the question the right way. So, well, listen. I think Tom butchered that question, Cindy. So we're gonna have 𝗵𝗶𝗶𝗵𝗃 KSN send you out the $50 gift card, and it's Friday. We're in a good mood, and I'm just grateful it wasn't a hockey question, which I thought was the direction Tom was going to go with that because our French American guest here today.
French American, way to butcher that one. That gets close.
So, French Canadian, yeah. All right, Curtis, man, awesome show today. Thanks for coming on and dropping all your experience. It's great to hear people go from 0 to 1, and let alone you've gone 0 to 5. So it's pretty cool. Tom, thanks always. Listeners, please check out our website. We got Build Your Team. So we now have a bunch of quality resources that are either by guests or we've been referring them out, or me and Tom use them. They're now on there to utilize for your own growth goals. So thank you, Curtis. Thank you, Tom. And listeners, we'll see you next week.
Au revoir.
Thank you.